years of the anti-choice community badgering, making this the most contentious issue in America, creating the stigma for women who accessed abortion care, so nobody wanted to talk about it. They made it seem like it was the most scary, dangerous healthcare outcome you could ever have, et cetera, et cetera. It created also a cultural phenomenon that we are still trying to unpack, and it will be many years before we do. So between 2010 and now, and building up to that, we had a lot of baggage being created. And then you had my generation. I'm a Gen Xer, and you know what? We just didn't care. We could access abortion care fairly easily. So it was just one of those things that we did. We still didn't talk about it with anybody because there's stigma, but we didn't have to go to Mexico. We didn't have friends who were dying. It was not the horrific thing that it is. It was not as hard to access then as it is now. And even though you would have to walk through protesters at any point in history for this. So there's this whole cultural side to abortion care in our country. And we had a movement, the pro-choice movement, that was so focused on a medical procedure and a Supreme Court case that it forgot to be talking to real people in their real lived lives. We were on the defense constantly for basically 40 years, and we were losing at every turn. We were losing culturally, we were losing politically. It was just by the grace of whatever God you might believe in that we were able to hold some of those stopgap measures in those state legislatures for as long as we did. But in 2010, the reckoning came. So now I want to talk about where we are today, because today is not as dark as 5 years ago or 2 years ago. Not only did we have a successful whole women's health, not that it is completely problem-free, not that we are, a done deal and ready to charge forward. It was the best news we've gotten in a long, long time. And we really needed that shot in the arm. And other things have happened. One of the things that I think is most important is, here we go back to interactive, I'm giving you a heads up. I've been told my whole life that this is the most contentious issue in American politics and culture. What percentage of Americans supports a woman's right to choose? 10%? 50%? 100%? 60%? That's very good. It's not right, but it's pretty good. So for many years, the pro-choice movement and all the news outlets would poll of this issue the exact same way. And at one point, I think that made sense, but it stopped making sense, not to quote Talking Heads again. The way the questions were being asked never gave anybody the ability to say, so they would say that in how they answered the question, do you believe that abortion should be legal in all cases? Do you think it should be legal in some cases? Do you think it should be illegal in some cases? Do you think it should be legal in all cases? People were kind of like, well, I think it should be illegal in some cases or only sometimes available, because that made them feel better. And I'll never forget the day I went to Washington, D.C. to actually interview for the job I have now, these many years later. And I saw her in the Philadelphia airport on our way to DC, and so we sat together and I was telling her about how excited I was. And she's about 15 years older than me, and she said, oh, I don't know about all that. She said, they just assume I'm always with them. And I'm not with them on everything. This is when the so-called partial birth abortion debates were raging. She said, they just always assume I'm with them. And that has stayed with me, and it has stayed with a lot of people. And one of the things we have done more recently is we have changed the polling questions to actually reflect the real lived interactions that people live. They don't live in a box of 4 answers. We all live in a complicated world where it is okay to be not 100% about anything, because then you're Donald Trump. So what we did is we changed the question. We added a couple questions. One, we actually just started asking people, do you think abortion is morally right or morally wrong? And that helped them say, I think it's morally wrong. Fine, because the next question was the important question. Do you believe that abortion should be legal in all cases? We got our usual 50% or 45%. We would always get that, no matter how we polled. But then we would ask the next question, and it was, even if you're you're morally opposed to abortion, do you think it should be illegal for all women? And the answer was always no. Not always, most of the time. We believe 7 in 10 Americans support reproductive freedom. 70% of Americans support reproductive freedom. I want you to think about how that changes not only your attitude about it, it changes how you advocate. NARAL Pro-Choice America is an advocacy organization. And if you think 50% of the people are with you, then you're talking, you never know who you're getting on the other 50%. But when you know that you're standing up for the majority of Americans in this country on a values-laden ideal, you talk about it differently, you have a different level of confidence, and it shows in the way we're starting to change the way our movement is moving forward.